In our busy lives, we often forget that our homes are not just walls and furniture. They are places where blessings or harm can dwell. Many of us wonder why we sometimes feel a lack of peace, constant tension, or unseen heaviness in our homes. Islam teaches us that angels, carriers of Allah's mercy, may choose not to enter certain houses. The reasons are shocking, yet they are entirely within our control. Today, let's uncover these reasons, so we can invite back the tranquility that only Allah can send through His angels. One of the main reasons angels do not enter a house is the presence of images or statues of living beings. In Islam, the prohibition of such images is not merely a cultural restriction, but a divine command rooted in the wisdom of protecting the purity of faith and the spiritual atmosphere of our surroundings. The angels, who are noble creations of Allah, are sent to bring mercy, protection, and tranquility to the homes of believers, but they avoid spaces that contain elements displeasing to Allah. When images or statues of living beings, humans or animals, are displayed, it becomes a barrier to their entry. These objects can be in the form of framed pictures hung on the wall, decorative statues on shelves, or even posters and art pieces that portray living creatures in a realistic form. The underlying principle is that such depictions can lead to subtle forms of pride, idolization, or even the imitation of creation that belongs solely to Allah. In earlier times, idols and statues were directly linked to acts of worship, but even in modern homes, such images can carry influences from cultures and beliefs that contradict the purity of Tawhid. Moreover, they can invite unnecessary attention from unseen forces that are not angelic, leading to disturbances or loss of peace. Many people keep such items unknowingly, thinking they are harmless decoration, but from an Islamic perspective, they create an environment where Allah's most beloved servants, the angels, choose not to remain. Even though photography has become a normal part of our lives, we must be cautious about what we display prominently in our living spaces. If these images are not necessary, such as for official documents or identity purposes, keeping them out of the main areas of the home and avoiding their glorification helps preserve the spiritual atmosphere. Angels bring blessings, but they are also symbols of purity, obedience, and submission to Allah, and they are not comfortable in places where His commands are disregarded. By removing such items from our homes, we create a space that aligns with the natural fitrah of the believer, a space where remembrance of Allah is central and distractions from faith are minimized. The beauty of a home should come from its light of Iman, not from physical objects that compromise the presence of divine mercy. Every believer should assess their home with sincerity, not out of fear of judgment from others, but with the goal of attracting the unseen blessings that Allah has promised. When we are mindful of what we allow into our homes, we are also mindful of who we are inviting into them in the unseen realm. A clean, simple, and pure space becomes a place where angels feel welcome, and where the atmosphere reflects the serenity of the Deen, making it a sanctuary not just for the body, but also for the soul. Another major reason why angels do not enter a home is the presence of dogs without necessity. In Islam, dogs are not considered impure creatures in themselves, as they are part of Allah's creation, but there are specific rulings regarding their presence within the living spaces of a believer's home. The Prophet Muhammad clearly mentioned in authentic hadith that angels do not enter a house in which there is a dog, except for certain cases where keeping a dog is necessary, such as for guarding livestock, protecting crops, or serving as a guide for the blind. The wisdom behind this ruling is rooted in both physical and spiritual considerations. Physically, dogs can carry impurities, especially in their saliva, which requires a specific method of cleaning if it comes into contact with utensils or clothing. Spiritually, their constant presence indoors, especially without necessity, creates an environment where the angels, who are pure and bring mercy, do not remain. This is not about hatred toward dogs, as Islam encourages kindness toward all creatures, but about preserving the sanctity of the home as a place of angelic presence and divine blessing. In many cases, people keep dogs purely for companionship or as a fashion trend, without realizing the spiritual consequences it brings. Over time, the absence of angels from a home can lead to a decrease in tranquility, subtle increases in tension, and even disturbances from other unseen forces. This is why the Sunnah encourages believers to keep dogs outside of the main living spaces, if there is a valid reason to own one, ensuring the home remains spiritually clean. The mercy and protection of Allah often come through His angels, and if our lifestyle choices create a barrier for them, we are essentially closing the door to blessings we desperately need in our lives. Modern society may normalize the idea of having pets in every form, but a believer's standard is always guided by divine wisdom rather than trends. Understanding this ruling requires humility and submission, knowing that Allah's commands always carry benefit, even if we cannot fully grasp every detail. By adhering to this teaching, a Muslim not only safeguards the physical cleanliness of their home, but also its spiritual purity. It is important to differentiate between necessity and desire, to assess honestly whether the presence of a dog is fulfilling a genuine need, or simply a personal preference. If it is the latter, then removing this obstacle opens the way for the angels to return, bringing with them the serenity, guidance, and protection that every believer longs for. Playing music or engaging in sinful entertainment is another reason angels do not enter a house. In Islam, the home is meant to be a place of remembrance, worship, and tranquility. Yet when it becomes filled with sounds and activities that draw the heart away from Allah, the atmosphere changes entirely. Music, especially when accompanied by lyrics that promote immorality, arrogance, or disobedience, becomes a distraction from dhikr and prayer. It affects not only the ears but also the heart, gradually desensitizing a person to what is haram and normalizing values that are far from Islamic teachings. Angels, who are pure and obedient servants of Allah, are uncomfortable in places where His commands are being openly disregarded, and thus they do not stay in an environment where such activities dominate. Sinful entertainment extends beyond music. It includes watching inappropriate movies, shows, or videos that promote indecency, violence, or mockery of religious values. When such content is played in a home, it becomes a silent teacher, shaping the minds and morals of those who live there, especially children, in ways that pull them away from the path of righteousness. The heart's spiritual health is sensitive, and what we allow into our senses leaves deep marks on our faith. Instead of being filled with Qur'an recitation, lectures, and words of wisdom, the air in the house becomes saturated with sounds and ideas that repel angels. Over time, the absence of angels means the absence of the special sakina, the tranquility, that Allah places in gatherings of His remembrance. A home without sakina often experiences constant restlessness, arguments, and a feeling of spiritual emptiness. Some may argue that music or entertainment is just a form of relaxation or personal enjoyment, but the believer knows that true peace comes from obedience to Allah, not from temporary distractions. Choosing to replace haram forms of entertainment with halal alternatives is a way of cleansing the home's spiritual atmosphere. Playing Qur'an, nasheeds without instruments, or beneficial lectures fills the house with barakah, and invites the angels to dwell there. The Prophet described the angels gathering where Allah is remembered and fleeing from places where sin is committed. So our choice of what plays in our living rooms, kitchens, and bedrooms directly affects who enters and stays in our homes in the unseen world. The home is the heart of a family's spiritual life, and every sound that echoes within its walls contributes either to attracting mercy or to pushing it away. Guarding the ears and eyes from sinful content is not about deprivation, but about protection, ensuring that the home becomes a sanctuary where Allah's mercy flows freely, and the angels feel welcome to remain. Using the home for gossip, backbiting, or spreading harm is another serious reason angels may not enter. Islam teaches that the tongue has the power to build or destroy, to spread light or darkness, and when a home becomes a place where people gather to talk about others in their absence, often in a way that damages reputations or sows division, it becomes an environment displeasing to Allah. Gossip and backbiting are described in the Qur'an as something so severe that Allah likens it to eating the flesh of one's dead brother, a vivid reminder of its ugliness and spiritual danger. When these acts are committed openly and repeatedly inside the home, the angels, who embody purity and goodness, do not remain in such a place. Instead of being a safe haven, the house turns into a source of harm in the unseen realm, attracting negative consequences, both spiritually and socially. Words spoken without thought often leave lasting wounds, and the barakah of time, relationships, and even sustenance can be removed because of the harm caused by the tongue. People may underestimate the seriousness of casual conversations, not realizing that the repeated habit of discussing others' faults creates a heavy spiritual atmosphere where mercy is withheld. The home should be a space where hearts are uplifted, where family members are reminded of Allah, and where visitors feel safe from harm. Yet when gossip becomes common, it breeds mistrust and spreads spiritual disease. Backbiting is not limited to speech. Even typing harmful comments in group chats, sharing rumors online, or forwarding messages that damage someone's honor can turn a home into a hub for spreading harm. Angels, as carriers of Allah's blessings, are not sent to places that actively engage in tearing others down. The Prophet warned against gatherings, where people's reputations are attacked, and replacing such discussions with remembrance of Allah brings forgiveness and tranquility. Families that guard their tongues create a peaceful environment, where differences are resolved with respect, where advice is given privately and sincerely, and where hearts are protected from bitterness. Every time a believer chooses silence over slander, or dua over criticism, they are inviting the angels to dwell in their space. The shift begins with awareness, realizing that what may seem like harmless conversation is in reality a barrier between the home and the mercy of Allah. Once this understanding settles in the heart, it becomes easier to change the tone of discussions, to guide conversations toward beneficial topics, and to set clear boundaries about what will not be tolerated within the home. By doing so, the house becomes a place where angels bring blessings, where family bonds strengthen, and where the atmosphere nurtures faith instead of weakening it. Neglecting daily prayers and remembrance of Allah is one of the most significant reasons angels may not enter a home, because prayer is not just a ritual in Islam, it is the lifeline between the servant and the Creator, the direct connection through which the believer draws mercy, guidance, and spiritual strength. When a home is filled with the sounds of adhan, the sight of prayer mats being laid down, and the voices of its inhabitants reciting Qur'an, it becomes a beacon of light in the unseen world, attracting the angels of mercy to descend and remain there. However, when these acts of worship are abandoned, delayed without valid reason, or performed without heart and focus, that light fades, and with it, the welcoming presence of the angels. Neglecting Salah creates a void in the home's spiritual atmosphere. Because it is through prayer that sins are forgiven, hearts are softened, and Barakah is brought into one's life. The Prophet said that the difference between a believer and disbelief is the abandonment of prayer, showing the seriousness of this matter in the sight of Allah. A house where prayer is neglected becomes spiritually vulnerable, more exposed to the whispers of Shaitan, and more prone to tension, arguments, and unease. The angels are attracted to places where Allah is remembered often, where His words are recited, and where His commands are upheld. But when the members of the household forget Him, the angels withdraw, and this absence is felt even if one cannot see it physically. Barakah, the remembrance of Allah, is also a key factor in keeping the angels close. Simple acts such as saying Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, and La ilaha illallah throughout the day, reciting morning and evening adhkar, and keeping the tongue moist with praise of Allah, all create a protective shield over the home. These words are not empty. They are powerful declarations that bring light to the heart and drive away darkness. When a household collectively engages in barakah, it transforms the atmosphere into one of serenity and safety. But when this practice is absent, that protective light is dimmed. Angels do not linger in homes where Allah's name is rarely mentioned, where Qur'an is never recited, and where the daily routine revolves entirely around worldly matters, without any space for spiritual nourishment. The neglect of prayer and barakah often starts gradually, sometimes unnoticed. A person may miss one prayer and plan to make it up later, but slowly the heart becomes accustomed to delay, then to neglect. Morning adhkar may be skipped because of rushing to work, evening remembrance may be missed because of entertainment or distractions, and before one realizes it, the home no longer has those moments where the remembrance of Allah fills the air. The angels, who are always engaged in worship, find no comfort in such a place, because their nature is to dwell where Allah is honored and remembered. Without their presence, the home is deprived of their unseen protection, and it is left open to the influence of harmful forces. Prayer itself is more than an obligation, it is a means of cleansing the home of spiritual impurities. Each salah is an opportunity to realign the heart, to bring Allah's mercy into the household, and to set an example for children and guests. When the call to prayer is heard in a home, and the members respond eagerly, the angels witness this obedience and remain in that space, recording it as a place of righteousness. But if the call to prayer is ignored, if the mats remain folded in the corner, and the hearts are too busy with worldly distractions, the angels turn away. This neglect not only impacts the relationship between the servant and Allah, but also weakens the spiritual fabric of the household itself. It is important to remember that angels are drawn to purity, obedience, and remembrance. A home that lacks these becomes a place where the spiritual air feels heavy, where peace is scarce, and where unseen harm may find easy access. The presence of angels is not just symbolic, it is a source of real barakah, blessings in health, time, wealth, and relationships. Without them, even the most luxurious home can feel empty, restless, and cold. On the other hand, even the simplest home can be filled with joy, comfort, and tranquility if it is alive with prayer and dhikr. Establishing prayer in the home requires discipline and intention. It means setting fixed times, calling the adhan even if it is only for oneself, praying in congregation with family members whenever possible, and making the act of worship a central part of daily life. The home should have a designated clean space for prayer, a place where Qur'an is recited, and where Allah's name is spoken regularly. When guests visit, they should see and feel that the remembrance of Allah is a priority in this house. Such consistency invites the angels to enter and remain, and it creates a spiritual environment that nurtures faith for everyone living there. Remembrance of Allah should also extend beyond the prayer times. It can be woven into the small moments of life, saying Bismillah before eating or leaving the house, praising Allah after blessings, seeking His forgiveness after mistakes, and expressing gratitude throughout the day. Families that make this a habit find that their hearts remain connected to Allah, and the angels remain present in their gatherings. Children raised in such an environment grow up associating their home with peace, safety, and the love of Allah. When prayer and dhikr are neglected, it is not only the angels who depart, but also the sense of divine closeness that every believer needs. Life becomes centered around the dunya, worries feel heavier, and blessings seem to slip away unnoticed. Shaitan takes advantage of such moments, planting seeds of laziness, doubt, and heedlessness. This is why reviving prayer and remembrance is not just about fulfilling a duty, but about protecting the home and its inhabitants from spiritual decline. The angels are Allah's agents of mercy, and they do not stay where His remembrance is absent, but they fill the spaces where His name is honored, where salah is established, and where hearts are alive with gratitude and obedience. Failing to maintain cleanliness and purity in the home is another major reason angels may not enter. Because angels are pure beings created from light, and their nature is to dwell in places that reflect purity, both physically and spiritually. Cleanliness in Islam is not just a matter of outward appearance, it is an act of worship and a reflection of one's iman. The Prophet Muhammad said that cleanliness is half of faith, showing that it is deeply tied to the essence of a believer's spiritual life. A clean home is a sign that its inhabitants care for the blessings Allah has provided, respect the sacredness of their space, and strive to maintain an environment where worship can flourish. When cleanliness is neglected, the home begins to lose not only its physical appeal, but also its spiritual light, and the angels, who love order and purity, are less likely to remain there. Physical cleanliness includes keeping floors, walls, furniture, and belongings free from dirt, dust, and clutter. It means ensuring that garbage is disposed of promptly, that bathrooms are kept fresh and hygienic, and that kitchens are maintained in a state suitable for preparing food that will nourish the body in a halal and healthy way. When a home is left dirty for long periods, it can attract pests, unpleasant odors, and even harmful bacteria, all of which contribute to discomfort and illness. But beyond the physical harm, a dirty and neglected home reflects a lack of mindfulness about the spiritual impact of one's surroundings. Angels are not drawn to spaces where filth is present, where impurity is ignored, and where carelessness becomes the norm. Spiritual cleanliness is equally important. This means ensuring that the home is free from anything that spiritually contaminates it, such as items associated with shirk, objects that promote immorality, or media that spreads sin. It also includes guarding the atmosphere of the home from foul language, backbiting, gossip, and other sins that pollute the heart. Just as physical dirt makes a place uncomfortable for angels, spiritual filth drives them away. The Prophet I described angels as shy and sensitive beings who avoid places where Allah is disobeyed openly. Therefore, even if a house appears outwardly clean, if it is filled with spiritual impurities, the angels will not dwell there. Maintaining purity also involves following the Islamic guidelines for ritual cleanliness, such as ensuring that places of prayer are free from najasa impurity, and that the body, clothes, and prayer area are clean before engaging in worship. Neglecting these aspects not only makes it difficult to perform acts of worship properly, but also creates a barrier for the angels, who love the places where salah is established in the best possible state. For example, praying in a room where there is a foul smell, unclean surfaces, or visible dirt not only distracts the worshipper, but also makes the environment less inviting for angelic presence. The concept of taharas, purity, in Islam is holistic. It includes wudu before prayer, ghusl after certain acts, and keeping one's clothing, bedding, and personal items clean. A home where tahara is observed regularly is naturally appealing to angels, because it aligns with their nature. In contrast, neglecting these basic acts of purification sends a message of heedlessness, not just to the people who live there, but in the unseen realm as well. A believer who values purity makes it a habit to ensure that the home is always ready for worship, that the Qur'an can be recited anywhere without hesitation, and that visitors, both human and angelic, feel welcome in a space that is cared for with love and sincerity. Cleanliness is also tied to barakah in provision. A kitchen that is kept clean is more likely to be a place where food is prepared with care, gratitude, and remembrance of Allah. A dining area that is tidy and pleasant encourages families to sit together, fostering unity and warmth. When these spaces are left dirty or disorganized, mealtimes may become rushed, stressful, or avoided altogether, weakening the bonds between family members. Angels, who are drawn to gatherings of goodness, are less inclined to remain in a home where neglect overshadows gratitude for Allah's blessings. It is worth noting that cleanliness is not about extravagance or perfection. Islam does not demand that every home look like a palace or be filled with expensive items. Rather, it calls for an attitude of respect toward the space Allah has provided, no matter how big or small, old or new. Even the simplest home can be a place where angels love to dwell if it is maintained with care, kept free from filth, and filled with remembrance of Allah. On the other hand, even a grand and luxurious house can feel spiritually empty if it is left dirty, cluttered, or spiritually polluted. There is also a deep psychological connection between cleanliness and the state of the heart. A cluttered and dirty home often reflects a cluttered and distracted mind, while a clean and orderly home reflects discipline, awareness, and care. The angels, who are constantly engaged in the remembrance of Allah, naturally prefer environments where peace, order, and beauty are present. When a person takes the time to maintain cleanliness, they are not just performing a household chore, they are preparing a space for worship, reflection, and the presence of mercy. The Sunnah is filled with guidance on cleanliness. From keeping the masjid spotless to maintaining personal hygiene through trimming nails, brushing teeth with the miswak, and wearing clean clothes for prayer. Applying these principles to the home transforms it into a space that mirrors the values of a believer's heart. Angels love the smell of fragrance and the sight of neatness, and they are uncomfortable in the presence of foul odors and disarray. This is why the Prophet encouraged using perfume, keeping the hair neat, and ensuring that the body and clothing are fresh, especially for worship. Extending these practices to the home itself creates a welcoming space, not just for people but for the angels as well. In a practical sense, maintaining cleanliness requires routine. It means setting aside regular times for cleaning, organizing, and purifying the home. It means involving all family members so that the responsibility is shared, teaching children from a young age that keeping the house clean is part of their deen. It means being mindful about what enters the home, not allowing items or habits that could bring spiritual harm, and being quick to remove anything that displeases Allah. Neglecting cleanliness, whether physical or spiritual, is more than just a sign of laziness. It is a form of neglect toward the blessings Allah has entrusted to us. A dirty home can slowly lose its sense of peace, and the absence of angels can lead to a noticeable decline in barakah. People may find themselves feeling uneasy, restless, or constantly in conflict without realizing that the state of their environment is contributing to their troubles. Just as light attracts light, cleanliness attracts purity, and angels, as embodiments of purity, are drawn to spaces where this quality is valued and protected. There is a strong connection between cleanliness and the act of hospitality in Islam. The Prophet was known for keeping his home clean and welcoming, and he taught that when a guest arrives, they should be made comfortable. The angels, though unseen, are also guests in the home, and just as we would not invite human guests into a place that is dirty or unpleasant, we should strive to maintain a home that is suitable for angelic presence. This means ensuring that the home smells pleasant, that the floors and furniture are clean, that prayer spaces are ready at all times, and that the atmosphere is one of warmth and serenity. Ultimately, the presence or absence of angels in a home is deeply tied to the choices of its inhabitants. Maintaining cleanliness is not about impressing others or meeting worldly standards of beauty, but about honoring the values of Islam, showing gratitude for Allah's provisions, and creating an environment where worship and remembrance can flourish. When a home is kept clean inside and out, it becomes a reflection of the believer's heart, pure, orderly, and prepared for the company of angels, who bring with them the mercy and blessings of Allah.